The time is 4:30 p.m. Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 26th April 2022 is called to order. I ask those in our chamber, City Council chamber meeting room this evening, if you have not signed in, please sign in on the clipboard by the back door. And also ask everybody to put their cell phones on vibrate. Roll call of members. Danielle?
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Foster is absent, and Mayor Brent Frazier.
Here. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here to our council chambers this evening for our council meeting. Also those that are joining us on Zoom this evening. And remember, our council meetings are shown on Wednesday evenings on Channel 14. A few announcements for the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 27th, from 10 to 11 a.m. is Conversations with the Mayor at Historic City Hall. Sunday, May 8th is Mother's Day. Our next City Council meeting is Tuesday, May 10th at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. And then also a special announcement on Thursday, May 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. is the Pelican Rapids Housing Summit at Lake Region Electric Cooperative. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Hearing none, if we all please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 is citizens' comment. Anyone here for citizens' comment? Dina.
Hi, I'm Dina Johnson, as most of you know. I am actually here to personally invite the entire City Council and administration to the Housing Summit on May 8th, or May 12th, excuse me, Thursday, May 12th, from 4 until 8. There will be light supper. You guys all have, I believe, a flyer, either paper copy or emailed. Most of you know that Otter Tail County had a housing summit down in Otter Tail City that the administrator attended, and because of some other conflicts, some of you couldn't attend. It was an all-day event. It was hard to get to. There was a lot of really, really good, fantastic information there. We are recapping some of that information. We're bringing you some new information and having some discussion. So we really personally invite each and every one of you, if you can make it. We really would appreciate your input, and hopefully you take something great away from it. So that's it.
Thank you, Dina. Anyone else for citizens' comments? If you do not have something on the agenda this evening, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, item number 3 is additions, deletions to the agenda. Any additions or deletions?
I have one deletion. Item number 9. Did we delete it?
Deletion of item number 9. Any additions or deletions? Move to approve with the deletion.
I'll second that.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 4 is approval of consent agenda, which I'll read. Item number 4A is approval of council minutes from April 12th, 2022. Item 4B is approval of accounts payable listing. Item 4C1 is utilities report, which is in our packet with actually 2 monthly reports. Item 4D is Pelican Rapids Chamber of Commerce gambling permit for October 8th, 2022 at the VFW. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Let's jump down to item number 6, special assessments. We have Ariana Zavala here this evening and Sarah Munich. And Ariana, do you want to lead the discussion here?
Sure. Should I stand here or should I go?
Yeah, can you address the microphone, please?
Sure.
Okay, well, good evening. I'm here today to come before the City Council and propose to have you consider the reduction of special assessments. This would be for Lot 5 on Maplewood Drive Southeast.
And basically I took the liberty of getting on the county website. It's this lot right here. There's nothing on the screen.
I like the rapid sign.
Well, bear with me a second. Use the internet here. Not sure if technology. Technology's not gonna work. Okay, but I'll try and describe it. Down on the southeast, the property on Maplewood Drive that you guys had just had a conversation about Mrs. Holman's lot and empty lot down there, and then there was the corner lot that Mr. Lamar basically owned, along with that house that was on that southwest corner down there, southeast corner down there. This is that corner lot that there's no house on, there's nothing on it. And there was a street project, a couple of street projects actually that went through there. One was street, one was water and sewer that went through that area, and it created two assessments, special assessments on this lot. And Mr. Lamar had come to the city council and asked you to defer the assessments, special assessments on these lots, giving him time to try and sell those lots, and the council agreed to do that. And so those assessments were put in place, the deferment was put in place with the understanding that if he sold the lots, then the specials would kick in. However, the buyer could also, if they were sold, the buyer would also get 3 years of deferment on those special assessments. And so that's kind of where it sits today. Like I said, he did sell lot number 4. Now we're talking about the corner one that overlooks the pond out there. That the special is currently set at $34,724 and some change, which is quite high, obviously. And I think what they're looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, but what they're looking for is some relief on those special assessments of $34,700 down to a lower amount.
Correct.
Don, did we address this topic with another concerned buyer before?
There was a buyer that was interested in that same lot and was thinking about approaching the council with the same request. And that buyer had found another property in town that they decided to purchase instead. I will say that when we had the discussions before, council's never had the discussions at the council level about this, but when we were talking with the other individual and stuff on that lot, specials, one of the things that was pointed out was that all those properties, the Solberg subdivision out there and these properties, all of them paid about $25,000 for water, sewer, and street. And so, that's kind of where it kind of was left off before when we were talking to this individual, and I think I had a similar conversation with with Ariana regarding that. I don't know where the council stands on all this, but knowing that, give you some idea of the possibilities, knowing that everybody else out there paid about $25,000 for their assessment.
Ariana, did you have a number in mind?
Sarah, would you want
Well, I guess I don't have a number in mind, but a reduction, you know, would be amazing. I want to keep my kids in the school district. I've had them here for 7 years. There's just nothing on the market right now. I'm looking at everything that comes up, and it's selling as fast as I'm putting in offers. So I guess building is my option, and I wanted an affordable option. I've looked into Barnesville and Perham, and it seems like they offer much better incentives than Pelican has to offer, and I guess I never really knew that with the building incentives here. I was a Pelican graduate in '96, so, but I guess that explains the growth. I guess I never really noticed that we don't have a lot of growth, so. But I guess that's what I would like. I would like to be able to have a nice affordable lot and build to keep my kids in the school district.
Council have questions or discussion?
Question for Don. Why is this one so much higher than the other?
It's because of the lot size. It's basically based on the frontages.
Okay,
This is a big lot, and it's basically on a corner also.
all right.
Well, Molly, the view is enormous, Molly.
Since it's on a corner, I mean, does that apply as a corner lot, the way we assess a corner lot?
Yeah, I think when this was all said and done, we have to go back and look at that particular projects that went around there to figure out the actual detail around how it came up, you know, what was the linear footage and how was it assessed being a corner lot. A lot of times, based on our assessment policy, it's so much of the frontage and then a percentage of, like, say, the abutting street on a corner lot's a little bit, you know, that's kind of the way we figured out, like I said, without going back and probably dealing with Apex on it to figure out how they assessed just the frontage, the front versus what you consider a side on the corner. We'd have to look into that, but that's the calculation that we use.
It's different than a normal corner lot, other than it doesn't have, 90-degree angles.
Well, yeah, but you still try and kind of
Yeah.
figure, that a 90-degree angle in there.
How is the lot to their south, the one we're talking about? To their south, how is that treated?
The one to the south? The one to the south really, I believe in that particular project, when we brought the street around and also put the water in there, or looped the water, they only, because they're only one side of that street abutting it, they probably got some assessment on that street, but Ridgecrest had already been done. So they didn't have, you look at, well, you won't see it on there, but Ridgecrest would have been the other street abutting that corner lot, and that one was at a different time. So if we would have basically put in the street on that property with the house on it to the south at the same time that we did this one, then they would have had, their assessments would have been different because the street went in both sides or abutting, pieces of that property, but that wasn't the case on that one, so it's not similar. Or not exactly the same, I should say.
I want to work with them, but, when we say the other developer's 25,000, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was, when all that was done, if you take into account inflation.
Today's dollar price.
True, yes. But would it today, if we did that same project, would it be 34,000? I don't know. And all we have to really go on is what, to try and think of it in terms of trying to be fair with what everybody else has paid for water, sewer, and street. Of course, we're not taking the inflationary factor into account here, but that's a starting place to say, well, we want to make sure that we're at least being fair from the perspective is we don't want to, in a sense, make it lower than what everybody else paid out there for water, sewer, and street at the time.
The last meeting, with the home and lot, I was kind of uncomfortable with that when I got one. And then, because looking at Raymond's proposal, we're going to be facing hopefully a lot of lots up there in West Plains. I don't know. I think
One of the things that I was going to report later on when we get down to my report on what I've been doing since the last meeting is the incentive committee has gotten together, and we talked about specifically the action the council took at the last meeting with respect to the other lot. And that's one of the things that we are taking into account with the possibility of hopefully a lot of new homes going up in Pelican Rapids, of being very careful about how we put together an incentive package. And right now, like Kelly Funk had alluded to at the last meeting, right now we have a list of incentives on the website. And the last one, because it's not a lot of detail in it because we're working on it, the last one is pretty much anything you think is reasonable, bring it to the council and we'll consider it, the city will consider it. And that's what Kelly was using last time. And so one of the things that the committee had talked about was putting some type of a cap on this stuff because it's going to be very difficult to do it on a case-by-case basis and stay consistent. We're not there yet though, but in this particular case, to stay consistent with respect to what that assessment would potentially be at that $25,000, because that's what everybody else paid it for their assessments, even though it was quite a few years ago. I say quite a few, maybe 10 years ago, whatever it was. I got to use that as a number just because. The other thing, which I'm sure they're probably going to be interested in, is the other incentives we do have out there, which I think maybe Ariana's already talking about, I'm not sure, but on the property tax abatement that we're offering also. So that will be part of all of it too, I'm sure. It'd be crazy not to.
Okay. Is that aside from the county rebate?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the county,
Okay.
the county rebate plus the city rebate plus any reduction in assessment. So that in reality, it's a great incentive. And I don't know why more people aren't asking for or looking for the phone.
I'd like to know, I'd like Don to suggest a number. He's working with this stuff way more time.
Well,
25 or what do you want?
that's the number that when we talked about this before, that's kind of where we land. To be fair with everybody else that's paid those assessments out there.
And that was the number that was presented to another party that was interested in this lot, and then they weren't interested even though
Correct.
that number was presented.
Yeah, correct. We never got to the council level of discussing it because that one kind of went away on its own as far as finding something else that they were more interested in as opposed to building. So in a roundabout way, we talked about it, but not publicly at council. And that was where it was.
I move to go 25 minutes.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to lower the specials to 25,000. How is going forward when we have any other number of street projects?
and we set up an assessment policy, how is that? Because I mean, this is based on that assessment of the footage or the frontage around the street project. So if we go forward and we have another street project, when we have another street project, and we have the assessment that comes out based on their frontage, are we setting ourselves up to now have to backtrack on all of those? Should they come in and?
No, I don't believe so, but one of the things that I think we're gonna have to, the city's gonna have to think about, or the council's gonna have to think about, we have an assessment policy. And that's what we've been trying to follow and have been following. The difficulty is, as everybody knows, costs are going crazy. And so you wonder where that line is, where the assessments on properties in Pelican Rapids are too high. And when is that time gonna come where the assessments are so high that people either can't afford to buy lots to put houses on, or they're not going to, because the assessments in Pelican are too high relative to other communities, which they kind of talked about a little bit. You'd like to live here, but if you have, $20,000 assessments in Perham or Barnesville, and you have a $30,000 assessment in Pelican, I mean, they've got to weigh them things over the long run, but that's why Mr. Lamar came to us with this lot. So at some point, we have to take a look at assessment policy and figure out, can we keep doing it based on the square footage, or do we have to think of a different way of doing it? An example would be, we're using the square footage where the developer that we're talking with on the northwest doesn't want to use the linear footage. He wants to go per lot. How would that have changed stuff down here? We don't know, because that's what we've done with it. But
this 25,000 roughly of assessment paid back when the project was done, that's just based off of one side of the project and not a corner.
that's based,
Most, are all those people down there that paid 25,000 only responsible for the 150 feet in front of their house?
yes. Yes,
So-
and there's a couple corner lots down there, but when they were assessed these, we didn't do Maplewood. So on Fifth Avenue, for instance, and that's what we're using as the example, I think actually Maplewood was about the same when we did theirs. Even though there was a couple corner lots on Fifth Ave, or Fifth Street, we didn't go on to Maplewood, so when we did the assessments to them, they were all based on no corner lots. They were just, and again, they were 25,000, but and I haven't looked up the assessments on Maplewood, which again, didn't have any corner lots, but I believe them were right in that same ballpark, and that's why we kind of landed at that $25,000 number. But they were also done at a different time too, so. Because excuse me, Steve, on the Maplewood one, we had the water and sewer was already in, and them assessments were already underway. And then we came back when we did the paving down that way. Them residents said, please pave Maplewood, we want our street paved. And so we did that and added that assessment to it. So if you took a look at what they were assessed when the water sewer went in, and what they were assessed when the street went through, and added them two together, I didn't go back and look that recent, that long. It was been a while, but I kind of think that's what it ended up being, because they were done at different times, and the street was more expensive when they did the street than if they had just done it when they did the water sewer.
Councilman Foster?
Well, like Steve, I was kind of uncomfortable after that decision we made at the last meeting too. And the problem with special assessments is that the people that are getting the benefits are the ones that are supposed to be paying for it. If we reduce it, then all the taxpayers are paying for somebody else's property. So if, say, we reduce it by $10,000, well, that means every taxpayer in town is gonna pay that $10,000, but I think we better come up with a policy rather than doing this on a case-by-case basis and doing it wrong every time. At the last meeting, we agreed to pay for the water hookup. So maybe we ought to sit down and talk about that and figure this out before we make a decision on this, about how we want to handle this. And I hope you weren't coming here tonight because we'd make a decision tonight on this, but
We weren't. We actually were coming before you to see if it's even worth it, to see if it's enticing enough for her to consider and stay in Pelican, or just go ahead and go to a different community.
as part of the committee that talked about these incentives, I mean, we discussed this a little bit at the meeting that, the other day about this, about the incentives here, so we're kind of rudderless on how to go about this, I guess. So, I guess I would like to just take some time and look at it and figure out what our options are before we make any kind of decision for their property. Because if we make a decision, then the next person that comes along, we're gonna have to make a similar decision on it. And I don't think we wanna get into that position.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion?
I mean, I didn't. What do you want to do?
I'm kidding.
Can I
The only reason I seconded was to start the discussion.
Yeah.
Can I ask a couple questions? When do they hope to move forward if that's what they want to do?
Well, the sooner the better that we would know, because she needs to break ground. If this is something that she's going to do, if it's enticing enough, she would hope to do that so this spring or the summer and have the home completed by fall. So this is something that needs, I'm not pushing like to be pushy, but it is time sensitive because they're selling their home and they're closing so within the next week and a half. So they need to figure out a plan. What are they going to do?
So
As
the
far
next
as that
council
goes.
meeting, or the next council meeting, but, and then, the one thing that, this is a unique lot in the sense that that is a very high special assessment for Pelican Rapids. So, for whatever it's worth, I don't know what you guys need to do to consider it or what you want to do, just think about it and come back at the next meeting on May 10th or whatever, but I think this lot at $34,000, almost $35,000, is going to be very difficult for this individual to ever sell without something being done with it.
Is it appropriate to ask the selling price of the lot, or what's the lot?
They currently have it listed for $15,300, and then they explicitly have it listed on the public remarks that the city wants the lot developed, and then it says assessments currently deferred and are likely to be reduced once we have a buyer. So, I mean, I personally had it listed over 3 years ago. It has not sold for the same reason. So even with a reduction, it has to potentially have enough of an incentive or enough of a reduction for somebody to not shy away. If maybe reducing it to $25,000, that other potential buyer decided to walk, then that's an indication of that something else has to be looked at.
I guess I would like to ask the interested party, if we come up with a decision in a month, is that too late with your plan?
Yes, more than likely. I mean, it's time sensitive for me. I'd like to have something done by the time my kids start school in the fall, so I do have to make a decision, so that's where I am.
How about 2 weeks?
2 weeks. I could do 2 weeks.
You could?
I'll move to postpone until it's
We
May.
got a motion on the floor here.
Yeah, but I can amend it.
Yeah. If,
I move to amend,
okay.
to postpone it till May 10th.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll say,
That is our next city council meeting, May 10th. Any discussion on that?
Can we get an exact cost for what the other lots were assessed?
The
If
ones
it was
on,
like 25,200 or 25,900 or 26,000 or 24,000 or whatever, get an exact on those lots so we know.
Okay.
any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those the same? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You'll be on the agenda then on May 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 7 is pool committee. I believe Kate Bolger Martinez and Carter Page is going to be.
I don't care. We didn't really talk about.
Yeah.
You can have all of us.
Do you want to introduce them?
Sure, I would love to. It's been a while since we've been before all of you. So I'm Amy King. Pool committee members here: Rudy Martinez, Kate Martinez, Brady Ballard. In the back we have Jackie Larson, Mark Dockin, and Don Perrin. Are all here? Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody. So. Well, thank you for having us on your agenda. We just wanted to come today to kind of update you on the progress of the project and also just talk to the council there's some scenarios here that are going to happen. We're going to find out hopefully the next few months here. And so we're hoping to walk away with some confidence from the council so that we can share that with our donors and our community of what the council's commitment is with this project moving forward. So that's kind of our goal today. In your packet, you have the updated dollar amounts that have been raised. The one that's in there is as of March 27th. Since then, there has not been much change there, so you kind of are seeing pretty current numbers. As far as that goes, we get it from West Central Initiative a week behind. And so you can see what's been raised. We have cash in hand, pledges, in-kind donations. So total fundraised at this point from our committee is $1,544,927.45. And then the city made a commitment several years ago at a city council meeting to start the fundraising with $1.2 million in the commitment. So with the commitments that have been made, fundraising and from the initial city commitment, we're just over 2.7 million is where we're at. As you know, just history-wise, we did not receive the deed targeted fund community grant that we had applied for. And unfortunately, that just came and went. It was a one-time grant offered from some COVID relief dollars that we were not fortunate enough to receive. So at this point, kind of moving forward, the biggest thing that we're waiting on is the Minnesota State legislation is still in session, and we have a bonding bill we've introduced through the House of Representatives. It was actually sponsored by Representative Dean Erdahl. He's the senior Republican representative on that committee, and our local representative, Jordan Rasmussen, had asked him if he would be willing to sponsor that bill going through. So we are currently waiting on their decision. Last update we had, we're still listed in the House of Representatives bonding bill and the governor's. To get funded, you have to be in all three. So we aren't currently listed in the Senate, but at some point in the end, that's kind of how things sort out to a final list of projects that are funded. Hearing on that, we won't know till they end the legislative session. And traditionally, that's been in May. We don't know if it'll be extended. It's been different times throughout the last few years of what they're doing. So that being said, as we come before the council today, there's kind of two scenarios. One is the scenario where we get funded through the state legislature. We receive the $1.5 million that we are asking for. At that point, then we have raised the 2.7 here, and we would get another 1.5. And so in this first scenario, we're asking the council if they would be willing to make a show of support and a commitment that says that if we get the bonding funding, that the city council is willing to fund the rest of the project to move forward with construction as soon as that bonding funding is available, and we would be building the project. So that's kind of the first scenario that we're all hopeful for. The second is if we don't receive that bonding funding, and that will be something that we will talk about if that's the case. But we still have this opportunity for bonding funding. So that's what we are coming for today, is we are hoping for a motion and a decision from the council that if the bonding funding is received, that this project would be a go based on all the funds that have been raised. So that kind of good. What questions can we answer for the council?
Questions from the council?
I know we had talked about space for bonding room.
Yeah, this would be considered a tax abatement bond. And based on what Amy's has for numbers here with the 2.7 to this point, and if we get the 1.5, we're still going to need 1.5 or actually more than that. Well, yeah, 1.5 from the city. The cities, with the bonding costs and everything else, the cities is probably going to be, I think, we kind of figured, which I'll show you in a minute, if the city bonded for 3.1 to get the project done. We have the capacity to do that, but it puts us right at our tax abatement capacity. With maybe a little bit of wiggle room, so I think the max we could go was 3.4, but or something like that, 2.2, 3.4. But when you talk about our capacity for the tax abatement, the pool would be in there. We also already committed to that apartment building so much, and that's figured in there also. And then all of these residential tax refunds that we are given for residential incentives, that also kind of goes into that figure. So we're leaving some room in there for that too. But at $1.3 million of city on top of what we have already here, 1.2 plus not another 3.1, but total city 3.1, we have the capacity at this point to do that.
Comments from the council?
I have kind of the same thoughts as last time, though. I think inflation, we started a recession. But, what percent could this go up in 6 months? I don't know.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. We will have to go back and have our construction company relook at what they have bid for the cost of construction. As a committee, what we've talked about is this project is never going to go down in cost, ever. That's not possible. And so at some point, if we don't act on this project and make a decision to move forward, the cost of materials and building is going to outprice itself, and it's not going to happen. And as a committee, we have fundraised and fundraised and fundraised and looked in every nook and cranny we can find and have gone back to businesses. Our businesses have multiple times supported this project. And as a community, in cash, we have $1.5 million. And so now it's your turn. Because as a committee, we don't know where else to seek big dollars. We've asked all of our local constituents, and they repeatedly have stepped up when we've asked. And so we're at this point where we have a tipping point to decide, is this project going to go forward? And your community is saying they want it to go forward. They're showing that in the years that we've spent fundraising and the amount that's been supported by your citizens. And so now it's your turn to decide what you get to do with that.
So Don, if we make a motion to go forward, what would be our total commitment then? The city's total commitment?
Well, what we had kind of talked about and what I figured and put in the packets would be bonding for $3.1 million.
3.1?
Yeah.
What happens can you tell us what happens with the money if we walk away?
Well, right now, at this point, legally, it cannot be moved to another project. It is with West Central Initiative as a project. We have never asked the question of what happens if we walk away from the project because our committee has not been willing to quit at any point.
The
So,
one thing you do know is you can't give it back
correct.
to the donor.
It's given, do you guys remember the name of that type of funding, how it's given? It's when people choose to give to West Central Initiative, it's given basically with no strings attached.
Irrevocable.
There we go, irrevocable. And so donors are choosing to give that money in good faith it's going to be used for the project, but they are not guaranteed to get it back if the project doesn't move forward. However, you also cannot reallocate those funds to a different project, so.
Well, I think they're asking for the council's support on this. So I'm going to make a motion that we bond up to $3.2 million contingent upon getting the state 1.5. And if that doesn't happen, I guess we're back to like square two or something like that.
Yep.
We're way beyond square one, I mean.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
To further explain it a little bit, I mean, they're just asking for our support so they know where we're at. And I've been on this council for longer than I probably should be, I don't know. But the pool has been something we've talked about for a long time.
Over 10 years.
Yeah, well, I've been on it over 10 years.
Yeah, no. That's the committee side of things, I guess. 2012 was when the committee was first formed.
This has been kicked around, I mean, I think we need to support these people who have done all this work on it.
Any more discussion?
Could the scope of it be reduced if, say, the inflation gets out of hand? If the cost gets way out of hand?
Well, it has, because at this point, it has grown from our original 3.7 million up. I mean, it continues to grow, and probably daily it's growing the longer we sit on this project. Now, could the scope be reduced? It's possible. It's going to cost more in architectural fees to go back to the drawing and look at different options. Could there be some options in reducing some things? Yeah. It's possible. We've thrown around a few suggestions within our committee, but obviously we don't want to spend money right now to look at different options when we're still waiting to see on the bonding funding. Ideally, it's going to move forward in the way that it is. Our donors have committed to the design that we presented to them, so it is hard to reduce a project when, we have people that have given to the scope that's been presented. If that has to happen, it's not that we're unwilling to explore it, but we don't want to yet at this point because it is still affordable for the city right now.
Any more discussion?
Frank, can I just add? Well, kind of along those lines, there's still things that will come before the council and some things to consider, and one of them being, obviously, whether we get the 1.5 million in bonding money, that makes everything a lot, well, if we don't get it, that makes everything a lot easier as far as conversations about this go, but it doesn't make anything easier regarding the donations. But if we get the 1.5 million, I kind of see some of the next steps are going to be looking at and having a discussion with the low bidder, the contractor. Because we need to start talking to them about where they see prices at. And we don't know that right now, but we all knew that this was kind of waiting for the bonding money to come through to see where we go. But we'll be having discussions at that point if we get it with the contractor to see, where his numbers went. And that might also drive taking a look at how the project might have to be altered to some extent. But to Amy's point, the donors gave to a pool project. With those amenities, those things in it, and so what do you scale back on without making them a little bit, kind of unhappy, but and there are a couple of things to think about, but until we need to think about those.
Right.
we probably have something back.
We-
Never have to worry about rebidding and things like that.
Well, and the reason we haven't shown, the reason we haven't recommended that the council reject all bids is because we truly believe, as does the architect, if we go back and rebid this, the number's gonna go higher than if we just talk to the, get the bonding money and then talk to the current low bidder about his costs going forward. It won't be as high as if we rebid it.
And we did back, I think it was kind of in COVID when we were looking at costs. We looked at the cost of reducing some of the amenities. We looked at the lazy river specifically. If we would cut that off, the architect did the cost analysis. And for losing an entire amenity like that, it was not enough of a cost benefit. It didn't reduce the overall cost at that time a whole lot. And so we would have to get really creative with some things, but it would completely change kind of the essence that we would have to if we're going to really reduce what we have created as a project. So,
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
thank you. We appreciate it.
Item number 8 is park board minutes. They're in your packet, and Kate is here, so we have any questions about park board?
Do you want me to get up? I don't know. I didn't have anything planned for you. It was more for the pool. Absolutely. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions about the park board minutes?
Yeah, did I announce that? Could I announce that real quick? We did get the Rotary grant for the Northwest Playground. And so, yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you for saying that. That was the newest excitement. And so because of last time when we were together, we agreed to move forward with that contingent upon the Rotary, and we got it. And so the order is in for the playground equipment. So the installation will happen in July sometime because things are just the way they are right now in the world. Yes, so thank you for reminding me of that. Very exciting.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the park board minutes? Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Thank you. Item number 10 is Economic Development Director Interview Committee. John?
Yeah, the council talked about this a little bit in the last meeting and the meeting before. We're at the point where we want to get interviewing committee established, and then look at probably posting for that job very soon. Councilman Strand had volunteered to act as the city council representative on that committee. I've also talking to a couple of people that have a background in economic development, one being Tim Thompson and also Amy Baldwin with Otter Tail County. And they said they'd be willing to sit on the committee, so the committee right now stands at Councilman Strand, Tim Thompson, Amy Baldwin, and myself. Unless you guys have any other elected officials or anybody else you'd kind of like to see sitting on that committee.
Any suggestions?
Thompson on the local.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're looking for a motion to accept those committee minutes?
Yeah, those four, the committee members.
I'll move we accept that.
Second? Motion second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 11 is just an FYI, a council chambers technology discussion. Don?
We had talked about how we want to maybe update the council chambers, talk about iPads, that type of thing. And I just kind of wanted to update the council where we're at with things, especially in light of the fact that by the end of this week, I have to report to the U.S. Treasury our use of American Rescue Plan dollars, which we talked about at the last meeting, and we had a plan set for that, and it's still the plan. But in light of the fact that we're trying to do something in the council chambers from a technology standpoint, I did meet with Sight on Sound, who were the ones that originally came in and put our microphone system in for us when the council table was this way. And they came in and looked at it the other day. So I talked to them about different mic systems and what they're looking at doing. And I know by the next council meeting I should have some numbers on it, but I wanted to share this with council in case they don't like where we're at right now or what our thought was. But all the mics will go away that we have, and they're going to have just 2 mic bars that basically hang down about 6 inches from the ceiling, right about in the area, on this side of these lights up there. And those mic bars will pick up all the sound in this room, so we won't need any more mics. They also, what I talked to them about was the live streaming aspect of it. And so they're looking at a camera system, much different than the little camera we got back there, that will actually be able to live stream with and the software that goes with that. And then that would be mounted on the back wall. We would have a staff person that would basically, during the council meetings, would be responsible to run that system back there. And then this screening, which is very difficult, the purpose of it right now is really just to share information with council, but the fact that we've kind of changed things around a little bit, we'd like to make it more viewable to everybody sitting in the council chambers also. We're looking at taking this screen and putting it on that wall over there, and then the camera would be able to pick it up. We're also talking about potentially adding another large screen on this wall over here. Don't know if we necessarily need that, but for sure we're looking at mounting this one over there so it's more viewable for everybody. The problem with it being on that wall or this wall, the way our council chambers is set up is the elected official on the end, basically whichever side, if it's over there, Councilman Strand gets to tweak his neck to look at this. So the room is really not conducive to doing anything too easy. So, the mic bars, the sound bars, with a streaming camera, with this over on that wall, would help big time. And then we're also talked before about, and this wasn't part of Sight on Sound, there has to be a computer set up back here with that system for the live streaming and that type of thing, so there would be a laptop in that also. And then that's what Sight on Sound is pricing out, and then they're going to do the install and everything. But then we also talked about iPads for the elected officials, so that they can basically, continue to get the packets electronically as opposed to us sending a bunch of trees or something else. So we're still looking at doing that. So that's the plan. The one thing with the American Rescue Plan dollars, the city is getting, I think there was 273,000 or something from that. And we had talked about, and the plan is still to take all of that money and apply it towards the 2024 water sewer infrastructure project, which is going to cost, we're looking at $8 million for the city to do that. So to put it in there to help with whatever that will do towards our rate structures going forward and the debt service to pay for that project. And when we passed the resolution for the American Rescue Fund dollars at the last meeting, the way that resolution was structured, and this was purposeful on my part, it doesn't change anything, but it was to take that standard allowance and to apply it towards a governmental project. It could be projects. So I presented it as just all that money going towards that. It makes it very easy for the annual reporting we have to do, the city's staff time on doing those reports. And my original intent was to put the project as being the Water Sewer Infrastructure 2024 project. I can add this to it It just reduces the amount that we're gonna be able to put at water and sewer. And it would just be another project. I would just name the first project, this is how much is gonna go to water, sewer, street project. And project number 2 is gonna be, whatever I call this, we call this. But I just wanted to throw that at the city council. I'm expecting that, when we're talking about laptops, we're talking about iPads, we're talking about streaming cameras, the mic system. I'm guessing we're gonna be somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000. And by the time you get all that stuff installed and set up, the reason I bring it up is because we don't need to do it as part of ARP money. We can just throw all that ARP money at the water sewer like we wanted to, or we could take 15 to 30,000 of it, put it in the project too. It just means less goes towards that out there in the water sewer area. If we don't use it for City Hall, then that will be in the general budget for next year. And part of the special levy.
So when do you say you'll be hearing back from the site?
Well, I know we'll have the numbers by the next council meeting. The problem is I have to report to the U.S. Treasury by the end of the week. And you have no option. You don't delay it, nothing. You have to report it by the end of the week.
So you're looking for an act decision here this evening?
Yeah, and if you want my recommendation is to do what we originally had planned and put all that money towards the water sewer infrastructure for the 2024 project to help buy down how much we have to borrow. And then when we have the number, instead of using ARP funds for configuring the council chambers, we just put it in the general budget. And maybe the liquor store can help pay for it.
Don, what platform would they use for streaming?
We will stream to our YouTube channel. We will live stream to the YouTube channel. Right now, we put it, it's next day. You can watch the city council meeting, this city council meeting tomorrow on our YouTube channel. But we'll live stream it right there.
But you said this could come out of the liquor store funds.
I'm just saying that's one option.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember, I'm stealing money from the liquor store funds to put a bridge in when the dam comes out, remember, so hopefully there'll be a little bit left over for maybe looking at that. But once we know what that number is and we start working on the budget for 2023, that's when we'll identify where these funds can come from. Even though this stuff in here might be done this year, so.
I'll make a recommendation to follow Don's recommendation on the ARP money. Giving him the ability to report this week.
Is there a second?
That was a motion, Kurt.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Discussion?
Could you clarify it?
Danielle, you got it?
It's all the ARP money is going into the street project. Okay.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 12 is trail plan consultant considerations, and you were given 3 handouts on your desk here this evening. One is from Dr. J.A. Leach Consultant, one was from RSF, and the other is from Apex Engineering. We have Bob Schliemann with us here this evening from Apex Engineering to answer any questions that we may have. Rod, do you want to address this?
Yes, so we had put that request for proposal together and sent it out to these 3 entities to give us quotes on them. They all, just to summarize, all 3 of the proposals pretty much, they do the work that we're actually asking them to do. So there's no concerns there. Councilman Ballard and I sat down and went through and looked at all of them. I will just kind of summarize basically where the quotes were at. SRF is out of Minneapolis, and we were kind of wondering if they were going to be able to be competitive with the fact that they're so far away. And their estimate came in at, or proposal came in at $28,191. Apex Engineering, their proposal was not to exceed $10,000. You see there's a huge difference. And theirs included time and expenses. In the proposal that we wrote, we did allow for direct expenses that they might have regarding, creating maps and all that type of thing, and then as well as mileage at the IRS rate. But Apex basically said not to exceed 10,000, so it includes all of that too. And then Mr. Leach said not to exceed 8,800, but he did say, and then he'd be adding into that direct project cost plus mileage. I did have a conversation with him just to get some idea of what he anticipated that cost would be, because obviously between 10,000 and 8,800, there's only $1,200 difference, and could that $1,200 be eaten up in mileage expenses and creating maps and the final product and all that type of stuff. And of course, it's really hard to estimate what that number could be. He is with NDSU apparently in some form or fashion, and part of the extension service, or was, or has that connection. And so as far as the mileage go, he did share that his mileage, he must live, I think it's not too far from Pelican, outside of town, his house and back might be 12 miles or 20 miles. So he said that he would charge, that mileage, when he comes into the committee meetings and all that stuff, and doing his research and coming into town and looking at things, that type of thing. But as far as his mileage, his trips over to NDSU, he did not foresee charging the city for those miles because he goes over there several times a week anyway. As far as mapping and all that, with his connections to the extension service, he didn't anticipate that the mapping would be any great expense either. But he didn't really know. So again, are we going to exceed 1,200 or stay under 1,200, which gets us to the same number that Apex proposed? The one thing that also goes through my mind is staff time, because we all are very busy. But so I think about between the two entities, Apex or Mr. Leach, how much staff time, city staff time, are they going to require in gathering information, getting information to them as they do this work over the next several months. I don't anticipate a lot, but I don't know. The one thing we do know with Apex is they did our Safe Routes to School plan. They worked on the Complete Streets project. They know all about our pedestrian infrastructure in the 2024 project. They're familiar with the bike and ped plan. So they know a lot about the city already. They have a lot of the information because they've generated it. Mr. Leach doesn't have any of that, and I'm not saying for that reason let's necessarily go with Apex. I'm just trying to point out that with one of them, I would anticipate there wouldn't be a whole lot of city staff involvement, and another one that could be. That's where the votes come in. Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think when you were looking at these, personally, I kind of automatically threw out SRF's quote just because it's 10,000 over the other two combined. So, but for me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We have Apex that knows the community, knows, and we know Bob is here just about as much as we are. So, I mean, he knows the community. The other side of that is we have another guy coming out that could maybe have the fresh perspective on the town, maybe outside ideas that we haven't thought about, that from another perspective. So I guess I'm not really, I have no real decision that I'd be.
Out of these three proposals, I believe Apex is the only one here this evening with us. Bob, do you want to, anything you would like to say?
Not really, I guess. I just want to thank the city for the opportunity to prepare and submit a proposal, but just because I'm here this evening, I didn't expect to come here and sway anybody one way or the other. I know it's tough for you folks sometimes to have somebody here listening, but if you feel that you want to go with a new perspective or fresh perspective, I totally understand that as well. You know, the main thing for us in submitting the proposal and talking with Don is we understand that you're hopefully going to get some funding for this effort, and that Don had just mentioned the city staff time concept of it, and that was the main reason for me coming tonight, is to be here, answer any questions. But again, if you decide to go a different direction, please realize you're not going to offend me, not a big deal whatsoever. So just me being here, please do not let that affect you making your decision. So that's the only thing I have to say. If anybody has any specific questions for me, I'll try to answer them. That's all that I have, so.
Something else that should be brought up is that this Partnership for Health is basically funding these studies, so up to 10,000. So that if we were to go with SRMs for some reason, we would be on the hook for the additional 18. So that's something to think about. But there's really no city dollars that we're.
And I just want to point out too, you have the proposals in front of you, and we all know what Apex is capable of. And I know you just got them today because there was something that, to get them all in the packet would have made a huge packet, but just so you know, looking at Dr. Leach's proposal, if you go to the last 2 pages of it, I mean, there's his credentials. There's no doubt the guy knows what he's doing with this stuff, with all the consulting work and the plan, or the stuff and planning and stuff that he's done out in North Dakota with Parks and Rec and other stuff. So I don't think there's any doubt that he'd be able to do the work also. So from an experience standpoint, again, you've got both of them that would be able to do it.
Well, one thing I did like to see is Apex said, point blank, not to exceed $10,000. And there is a $10,000 up to amount tied to funding. And given, of course, they're super familiar with our city, as you described earlier. I guess I would lean towards Apex personally.
Someone willing to make a motion?
So, I'll second.
To what? Okay. We have a motion and a second to hire Apex Engineering as a trail plan consultant. Discussion?
I got a question, and I don't know if Bob can answer it or not, but the trail that's down from Fergus that runs south, are you familiar with that? Who did the planning on that?
I'm familiar with the trail. I can't answer who did all the planning on that. That is a very extensive trail. I think that runs all the way to Alexandria. It follows an old railroad corridor, goes through Evansville, down through that whole corridor. Yep, and that was done a number of years ago, so I'm not familiar who did all the planning on that.
We paid for part of that.
Yeah.
We were considering a trail here, and it didn't move forward. There was money allotted, and now we're considering this one.
And that was many years ago. They didn't have the extension up from Alexandria until Pelican got $1 million to do the Pelican and Maplewood Trail and had to do the back.
That may have been done before I started. And I've been doing this just shy of 20 years, and I think that may have been there prior to me starting. So it's been a long time ago. Yeah.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same.
Mayor,
Motion carried.
one more thing on the trail plan is an advisory committee that's going to work with APEX. And this is right up the park towards alley because of what we're trying to accomplish. So I had some email discussions with Amy. I know Kate's aware of too. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to designate the park board as the advisory committee to work with the consultant. But along with that, we also have to have, based on the criteria and guidelines from Partnership for Health, Patrick Hollister will also sit on that, as well as we need VINDOT representatives, and I've reached out to Jane Butzer and Mary Safrin, who are their bike and ped team, and so I'm expecting they will. And then also we need an Otter Tail County representative, and I've reached out to Deb Schuster, hoping that she will also. So that would be the makeup of the advisory committee, and I would like a conflict to make a motion on that also.
I move to approve the recommended committee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Does the park board agree with that?
Park board suggested.
Yeah, we want that.
Discussion? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 13 is administrator report.
Yeah, since the last meeting, we obviously go through the work of setting up the council, or setting up the agenda and prepping for the meeting. I attended the quarterly safety committee meeting, also the monthly MnDOT 2024 virtual meeting that we do on a monthly basis. I met with the full committee and representatives and elected officials to talk about the full project. I also attended a meeting with Otter Tail Power and MnDOT regarding the 2024 project because the lights are going to also be replaced, and so it was time to get Otter Tail Power involved in conversation, and so they're looking into some things and getting some information, exchanging information with MnDOT to get that moving forward. That was Sight and Sound here to look at how we're going to apply technology to this room. I met virtually with local foods, local places after the last council meeting to talk about it and work with them a little bit on the community kitchen feasibility study application that they were doing with Essentia. They're hoping to apply for it through Essentia. I had a telephone call with Amy Baldwin regarding the upcoming Pelican Rapids Housing Summit on May 12th. And I'll have another meeting with her later this week to kind of talk about the agenda. And I think Dina did a good job of explaining exactly what the county is trying to accomplish by getting the information from the Otter Tail meeting out here, plus sharing some more about the housing incentives and what the big bill's all about, and apply it specifically to Pelican Rapids. What we hope to do is kind of share a little bit about what Pelican Rapids has been working on. And one of the things that I was wondering is if we aren't a little bit premature, because it would be really nice to have an already done plat like some of the other cities do that we can start applying this to. But after thinking about it and talking to Amy, the timing's probably right, because there's other things that can be applied for and other things that can be worked on with the information that the county's going to provide. This will just add more to it later. So the timing's probably good for Pelican. I also mentioned that I met with Mayor Frazier and Councilman Foster talking about the incentives a little bit, and we plan to meet again on Friday this week. I attended the Planning Commission meeting and comp plan public hearing held last night. And this afternoon, I had a virtual meeting with the mayor and People's Service with the MPCA regarding PFAS and how that's going to affect the city and how we're going to be involved in the state's PFAS monitoring plan beginning next year. PFAS. which is all the plastic stuff that we apparently eat and swallow when we're buying containers of food, so that affects the city, so. Yeah, they were telling us that we have to monitor, it's voluntary, but we have to monitor, and it's gonna cost the city probably around $6,000 to do the first sample testing that we have to do over a couple of year period. That'll go into our budget. That's my report.
Any questions for Don?
Is saying something about that on the local?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Thank you. Do we have a liquor store personnel thing you have to take care of?
No, we're gonna wait for them to show up.
Yeah. Apparently, they're not, Maggie did get a hold of me very close to the meeting and said that she had an employee that called in sick. She was trying to get another employee to come in and work for her, and if she could get that person here, she'd be here, otherwise, she said she wouldn't make it.
So we'll move item 5 to the next city council.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Don. Item number 14, Mayor, report a few things in the last couple of weeks that I've attended a local foods, local places steering committee meeting via Zoom technology on April 14th. Attended the 2024 Pelican Rapids Complete Streets Steering Committee meeting with Administrator Solda here at City Hall on April 14th. Met on April 18th with a couple of real estate agents regarding plans for housing in the northwest portion of Pelican Rapids. Met with Councilman Foster and Administrator Solga at City Hall on April 22nd regarding the incentive packages we plan to offer for those that are willing to build homes on parcels of land within the city of Pelican Rapids, and we highlighted that a little bit this evening here at this meeting. I attended a farming planning meeting at Pelican Rapids Library on April 22nd, which was conducted by Kayla Farms out of Turtle Lake, Wisconsin. And this was sort of geared to people that want to start like an incubator type farm, or it was pretty good representation from the community. There was 2 different meetings here, and then from here they went to Moorhead, Minnesota on Saturday. Met yesterday with Administrator Sullivan to review the agenda for this evening's city council meeting, and then as Don mentioned, I attended a Zoom PFAS kickoff meeting today with Don and Terry Gamble and Greg Stang of People Service. Any questions?
Thank you.
Maggie just showed up.
Maggie came in?
Yep.
Okay. She made it.
Yay.
Maggie, you're next. Item number 5, liquor store personnel. Maggie.
Thank you. So I'm here to request hiring 2 people for year-round positions right now at step 1, Julie Rice and Lisa Emery.
Full-time?
Part-time. Lisa Emery.
Any questions for Maggie?
Move we approve the hiring of Julie Rice and Lisa Emery at step 1 for both.
Yes.
Second one.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All the same? Motion carried. Anything else, Maggie?
That should do it for this time.
A question, are you going to open on Sundays after Memorial Day?
The next schedule coming up has us opening on Sundays, yes. So sometime in May.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Seeing no other business on this evening's agenda, motion to adjourn. Motion second, all in favor, aye. All the same, meeting adjourned.